factors governing trip generation and attraction rates. We had discussed what different factors are actually to be considered as responsible for the trips to get generated and attracted. So if you remember, we had discussed about income, vehicle ownership, family size and composition, land use characteristics, and then distance of the zone from the town center, accessibility to the public transport system and its efficiency, and then employment opportunity as well as the floor space that is available in the region. So these are considered to be as some of the prime factors which are responsible to generate the trips and also responsible to give the opportunities for attraction, right? That is where the trips actually happen. Now the next thing that we were supposed to discuss here was in terms of the various methods that are adopted for doing the trip generation analysis. So if you remember, I had discussed in the class saying that most of the analysis that we do in transport planning is somewhere related to its application in the form of statistical techniques. Okay, so we use plenty of statistical techniques to understand and to analyze the huge amount of data that we have collected through the transport inventories. Okay, so these datas, it would be very difficult for you to manually analyze it. So you might have to depend upon various softwares and various computer based tools to do the analysis, the statistical analysis. Okay, now one such statistical analysis that we follow in transport planning is multiple linear regression analysis. Okay, there are many such regression analysis and other such techniques which we adopt, but the first one that is very popularly and very frequently used is multiple linear regression analysis. Now this is a very well known statistical method to basically develop the relationship between two forms of variables which we call as the dependent variables and that of the independent variables. So whenever you have an equation, okay, say y is equal to mx plus c or y is equal to ax plus c or ax plus u, just like how it has been displayed here. Basically in such simple equation you will be having two forms of variables. One is what we call as the dependent variable and the other category of variable is the independent variable. So there can be sets of independent variables which are going to influence the dependent variable. Okay, so dependent variable is dependent on all these different types of independent variables. Okay, so when it comes to transport planning and its application in transport planning, the dependent variable is always considered as the total number of trip. Usually it is considered as total number of trips. So total number of trips will be dependent on these various independent variables, which can be in the form of land use characteristics or socioeconomic characteristics or the household characteristics or vehicle ownership, income, etc., etc. So all those factors that we discussed in the previous section can be considered as independent variable, right? So these independent variables will be actually uh, represented in a simple equation like this. So if you have an equation yp is equal to a1x1 plus a2x2 plus a3x3 so on till anxn plus u. So when you have a equation like this, all these x1, x2, x3, xn are considered to be as independent variables. Okay, now each one of these independent variables can have their own respective constants, which we call as the independent variable constant or constants of independent variable. Okay, so these constants would be represented in the form of a1, a2, a3 or an, right? So the general equation would look like yp is equal to anxn plus u, where an is the constant of independent variable xn and u is what we call as the disturbance term, okay, which is irrespective or it is irrespective of any independent variable that we have into consideration. So it is called as the disturbance term. It represents the portion of this dependent variable yp which is not explained by any of these independent variable. Okay, so yp is actually the total number of trips for a specified purpose p. Okay, so yp is the total number of trips for a specific purpose p, and this is considered as a dependent variable, right? And this dependent variable is actually dependent on these independent variables and their respective constant. Okay, and this you have the disturbance term. So this is how the general equation of multiple linear regression analysis looks like. Okay, so there are simple examples which are being shown here, which indicates how in practicality or in terms of its practical application these in multiple linear regression equations look like. Okay, so there are some case studies upon which, after analyzing all these data through inventories or surveys that we have collected, after doing the statistical analysis using those different tools like Microsoft Excel or various other softwares what we have to do the statistical analysis, once the analysis is done, you will get an equation like this. Okay, that's the prediction model or prediction equation what we call. So there are two such examples of the prediction equations based on multiple linear regression analysis, and the first one is the first and second one, both of these are from Toronto and Modesto. Okay, so these are two places from where this equation is been taken for explanation. So the first example states that this term, that is total trip or the total trips generated at home on an average working day, is yp. Okay, this is the dependent variable. This is equal to 0.318 times of population 5 years and older, 0.458 times of number of households, 0.890 times of number of cars owned or vehicles owned. Okay, so yp is equal to, these are all constants, a1, a2, a3, and these are all variables, independent variables, x1, x2, and x3. Okay,
Sir, what's
sometimes,
the second term?
sorry,
What's the second term?
this one, are you talking
Population
about
5
this?
years plus
0.458 times of number of households.
just
Okay,
before that, sir. Just before 0.45.
this is plus 0.318
Before that,
0.318 times of population 5 years and older. That means that we are talking about population whose age is greater than 5 years. Okay, so 0.38 multiplied by population of the given study area where the population is only greater than 5 years plus 0.458 times of number of households that you are taking into consideration for your study. Say for example, in an area of your study there are 1000 households, then this would be 1000 households means 1000 houses. So we don't call it as houses in transport planning terminology, we call them as households. Okay, so 0.458 times of number of households in the study area plus 0.890 times of number of cars owned. Is that clear? Was it clear?
yes, sir.
Okay, so the next example is similar to what we just discussed, which looks similar to what we discussed about the general form of regression equation, right? So this y, is equal to 2.18. Now this 2.18 is similar to this u what we just discussed. Okay, that's the disturbance term. So this 2.18 is the disturbance term plus 3.404 times of A plus 0.516 times of H plus 0.0119 times of X1 minus 0.343 times of X2. So all these terms A1, A, H, X1 and X2 are independent variables. Now each one of these independent variables, they have their own constants. So constants of independent variable is what we call. Okay, so these terms can be either additive or subtractive, subtractive, and then you also have the disturbance term, which is 2.18. Okay, so this is how there's a similar example which gives you an idea about how the multiple linear regression equation would look like. Okay, so here y is the average trip per day occupied by occupied dwelling unit. A is representing the car ownership, H is representing the household size, X1 is the social rank index, and X2 is the urbanization index. So you need not worry much about what these different indexes and ranks are. It depends upon the planner who is doing the planning process and what assumption the transport planner has done to do the analysis. Basically, you are trying to find out the average number of trips per occupied dwelling unit. That is why. Okay, so depending upon the changes in these, you just have to substitute the values, okay, in terms of all these variables, and then you will be able to predict what is the total number of trip or average trip per occupied dwelling unit. So this is how some of the predictions are done in transport planning. Now whenever you are trying to whenever you are trying to develop your own multiple linear regression equation, or when you are trying to carry out a multiple linear regression analysis, you will have to make certain assumptions and you will have to check their validity in terms of trip generation studies. So all those sorts of analysis that you are going to do, they are always backed up with certain number of assumptions to reduce your complexity and to reduce your complications when you are trying to do the analysis, right? So some of the assumptions would be the basic ones are being listed here, which are 5 in numbers. So we shall discuss each one of these little in detail. Okay, so the first assumption that we make here is that all the variables in an equation that you are going to develop, all the variables are independent of each other. Okay, all the independent variables that you are having in the equation, they are independent of each other. Secondly, all the variables are normally distributed. So you might have already studied about normal distribution in your mathematics classes. It's similar to that. Okay, so the third one is all the variables are continuous. You don't have discontinuity in the variables. That is what is being assumed. Then there exists an there exists a linear relationship between the dependent and independent variable. That is why you will be having a straight single equation like this. Okay, so whenever you are talking about linear regression equation that need to be developed, that means that the dependent and independent variable are having a relationship which is linear in nature. Okay, then the influence of independent variable is always additive. These are some of the assumptions that we make when we are trying to develop a regression equation or a linear regression equation. Now I don't say that this is only applicable, or these ideas that I gave you is only applicable for transport planning. You can apply it for any field of study, whether it is political science or environmental science or whatever it is, whatever study, wherever you have a huge amount of data, and when you are trying to develop a relationship between the dependent and independent variables, okay, these assumptions and the equations that we just discussed is going to remain similar. Okay, so you need not think that it is applicable only for transport planning, right? Now Once you have understood the assumptions, the next thing that we need to discuss here is in terms of aggregated and disaggregated analysis that we have as a part of this linear regression equation that we just discussed about. Okay, so multiple linear regression analysis, when we are trying to carry out, they can be of two types. One is what we call as aggregated analysis, and the second one is disaggregated analysis. Now the word itself tells you, when we are talking about aggregated analysis, you are trying to take the entire system as a single unit and then you're going to do the analysis. Whereas in disaggregated analysis, you're going to disaggregate those different sections and then you will be doing the analysis. So when it comes to the transport planning application, in aggregated analysis, you will be carrying out the analysis which is also termed as zonal least square regression analysis. So aggregated analysis is also called as zonal least square regression analysis. Now what happens here is each traffic zone, okay, each traffic zone is treated as one observation. Say for example, we are trying to study and analyze the traffic characteristics that are there in Peenya industrial area, which is in Bangalore. Okay, so when we are talking about such a thing, then it means that I am talking about Peenya as a whole. Okay, I'm not concerned about each one of the households that are there in Peenya. Okay, so when that is a single zone, I'll be considering the entire zone as one observation and then I'll be doing the analysis. On the other hand, when I talk about disaggregated analysis, each household is treated as one observation. Suppose there are 1,000 households in this zone called as Peenya, then each one of these households that we have, that is the 1,000 households that we have, they are considered as one single observation. Okay, each one of them will be considered as an individual observation. That is what we term as the disaggregated analysis. Okay, is this clear to everyone? Is it clear to everyone?
Yes.
No?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I hope you have understood what I just discussed. In case if you have any doubts, you can ask me right now. Any student who has not understood what I'm talking about? Okay, let me just move ahead. And here we shall be discussing some of the advantages and disadvantages of both aggregated analysis and disaggregated analysis. Okay, so this aggregated and disaggregated analysis category that we just discussed, okay, they are types of carrying out the analysis through the multiple linear regression equation that we are going to develop or that we have already developed. Okay, now each one of these analysis process, they are having their own advantages and disadvantage. So when we talk about aggregated analysis, there are very few advantages. Like for example, the assumption that all household exhibits similarity in travel characteristics is the advantage. Okay, that means that in case if you are trying to study an area within a city, okay, you are going to assume or you have already assumed that every single household that is there in the area is going to have similar travel characteristics. That means that every house that is there in the area is going to have similar travel pattern. Okay, like for example, if from a house there are 4 number of trips that are getting generated every day, we have made an assumption that every house, that is 1,000 houses that are there in the region, also will be having 4 number of trips every day. That's the assumption. Okay, so we have assumed it to make the analysis little simple, but practically I don't think this is possible, because in your house, in case if we are staying in the same area, in your case you will be traveling around you will be generating around 4 number of trips per day, and I might be generating around 10 number of trips per day. Okay, so even though there is dissimilarity there, right, in aggregated analysis, because of the assumption that you have made, okay, the household is going to exhibit similarity in travel characteristics. That's an assumption, and that's considered as an advantage because you're trying to make the problem simple. Secondly, this particular assumption is going to allow the data to be grouped in zone, and the mean value of independent variable is used for the calculation. Okay, just like how in case if you would want to take the mean value of number of trips among all the households in the given region, say 1000 number of households, you can easily take the mean and you can group them in certain zones and do the analysis in a much simpler way. That's the advantage. Now when we try to discuss about the disadvantages, you have plenty of it. Like for example, it masks the variation in data. As I said, not all households in the given area will have similar traffic characteristics or travel characteristics. So this kind of a variation in the characteristics, okay, or variation in the data will be masked. Masked means you will not be able to distinguish them. You're trying to hide the things behind the assumptions. Okay, so that masking of the variation in data is possibly seen. Secondly, the data is inefficiently utilized, irrespective of how effectively you have collected the data by going to each one of these households. Okay, the data, when it is assumed to be similar among everyone, it is inefficient. Okay, thirdly, it indicates that the zone sample mean is not a reliable estimate. So whenever you are trying to take a mean of all the data that you have collected, okay, it's not a reliable estimate that you're going to do, because from household to household the travel characteristics is going to change. Okay, for example, in case if there's a household where there is no trip that is getting generated, then obviously you will be assuming that those people are generating trips. So that is again a contribution of the households unreliably to have an estimate throughout the zone. Okay, that's how the thing is. Next is this model that you are going to develop, or the equation that you are going to develop or that has been developed, is dependent on the type of zoning system that you have adopted, the way with which you have assumed the zones to be divided into different sections. Okay, so that's how it is. Next, zones cannot be homogeneous. That's the disadvantage. Okay, not all zones are assumed to be homogeneous, because there's going to be variation from zone to zone in terms of social characteristics or economic characteristics or employment characteristics or residential characteristics. Okay, the characteristics of the travel pattern is going to be different, and you are assuming it to be homogeneous, which is not correct. Okay, in this particular aggregated analysis, okay, we are assuming that the zones are homogeneous, which is practically not correct. Secondly, or other than this, making the zones small to make them homogeneous increases the complexity. I think I had already discussed with you about this. Basically, we divide the whole study area into number of sectors and zones and subzones for the ease of doing the analysis and to reduce the complication. But further ahead, in case if you are trying to make these zones still smaller, then it is going to add to your complexity, right? Which again is a part of this kind of an analysis, which we call as aggregated analysis, right? So this was all about aggregated analysis and their advantages and disadvantages. Next is to discuss about some general features about disaggregated analysis, right? So when we are talking about disaggregated analysis, this particular disaggregated analysis is not very much used because you have a lot of variations into it. So though not so widely used, it treats each of these households in a given study area as a single observation. So even though the complexity is slightly high, the accuracy for which you are going to process the data is quite better. Okay, it takes a lot of time in this disaggregated analysis. There will be a lot of complications in your analysis. That is what things would look like. Okay. On the other side, all the data that you have collected through the inventory is used effectively. That's the advantage. You're not going to assume many of the things. Whatever data you have collected from the site, that would be effectively used to do the analysis process. That's the advantage. Okay. And whenever you are doing the analysis, you will be getting a meaningful description of the characteristics that you are trying to study. Okay, and then when you are having a meaningful description, you will be giving a better and stable result, okay, over time, and also in terms of reliable future estimates. So whatever estimate that you're going to do using those prediction models or prediction equations like y is equal to an xn plus u, okay, whenever you are trying to give the predictions, those predictions will be reliable to estimate the future conditions. Okay. So these are some of the advantages what we have in disaggregated analysis. The only disadvantage that you have here is you will be having a very complex situation to do the analysis. It would be very tedious because you're trying to minimize the number of assumptions that you're going to make. Is that clear? Any doubts you have till now? Any doubts? Do you have any doubts?
No, sir, but I think the
Yes, sir.
disaggregated advantages is not seen.
Which one?
Disaggregated,
Yeah.
I think it is stuck with aggregate agency.
Are you able to see now?
Yes, sir, now I'm able to.
Okay. So I hope you have understood what we have been discussing here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next thing that we need to discuss here is to understand about criteria for evaluation of regression equation. Whenever a regression equation is being developed, now these kind of regression equations you also will be developing in other forms when you're trying to do it in your final year project. So whenever you are working on your final year project, you might be working at the site, or you might be collecting some data, huge amount of data, or you might be working in the laboratory testing number of specimens, and to understand how the things will be changing. Okay, you will be ultimately developing an equation. Okay, most of you who are still working on the final year project, you will be having an understanding about these things, and these things are going to be helpful for you even there, right? It's not like it is applied only on transport planning. It's not like that. Okay, you can apply it anywhere you want, and I'm sure most of you would be developing similar such equation depending upon what work you have chosen for your study. So at the end you will be developing a prediction equation somewhat like the one that we just discussed. Okay, most of the times it might be aggregated analysis, or it can also be a disaggregated analysis like the way we discussed. Okay, so whenever you are trying to develop an equation, you need to evaluate those equations. You need to check whether those equations that you have developed is reliable or no. Okay, so to check whether the equation is reliable, or you can trust the equation for doing the predictions, you will have to carry out certain tests, or you will have to follow certain criteria. Okay, some of those criteria, the general ones, are being listed here, which indicates that the multiple linear regression coefficient, or we also call it as R square value, should have a value greater than or equal to 0.75. Okay, when you are getting the R square value close to 1, then that means that it is having a good correlation between the dependent and independent variables. Okay, so the relationship between y and x is assumed to be, or is concluded to be really good. So whatever study that you have carried out and whatever analysis that you have carried out, that is very much correct to develop the relationship between y and x. That is what it means. Okay, so that R square value is supposed to be greater than equal to 0.75. Normally the best possible fit that we can get, or relationship that we can get, is when R square is equal to 1. Okay, so normally it is highly impossible for you to come close to 1 or equal to 1 when you are having a laboratory investigation, or when you are having a huge amount of data. Okay, very rarely it comes equal to 1, but never it will be almost equal to 1. It can be close to 1, 0.9, 0.8, something like that, but always it has to be greater than or equal to 0.7 or 0.75. Okay, now other than this, secondly, the second criteria is the standard estimate of dependent variable, or the standard estimate error of the dependent variable must be very small. So that error that you are going to get whenever you are doing these statistical analysis, you will be getting the error component also. So that error component among all these variables that you are trying to fit within, it should be as less as possible. You cannot have zero error, but the error that you are trying to get in the equation must be as small as possible. Okay, to do that you have certain number of tests. Like for example, you have something called as F test. So this F test must be carried out to measure the degree of certainty between the dependent and independent variable. So the degree of certainty, that is, it's a measure of how certain the relationship between the dependent variable and independent variable is going to be. So for that, to measure that degree of certainty, you will be carrying out this F test. Similarly, you have chi-square test and many other such statistical tests that we apply the equation into and check how the degree of certainty is among the variables that we have. Okay, now this equation that you are going to develop after carrying out the degree of certainty, the equation is expected to have accuracy, it is expected to have validity, simplicity, and it is expected to have certain amount of sharpness and consistency. Okay, so all these parameters are very important. It's like a product. Okay, you are going to do certain analysis using a huge amount of data, and that analysis, when you carry out, you will be coming out with a prediction equation wherein you will be predicting, in case if with respect to all these different variables, in case if this is the situation as of now, what would be the situation after 20 years. Okay, so that equation is going to predict something in the future. So whenever it is trying to predict something in the future, you will have to develop the equation which is in the form of a product, okay, which is accurate, which is validable, which is simple, and which is consistent. Okay, so this equation that you are trying to develop, or that you have already developed, must have all these different qualities. That is what it means. So these are the criteria for evaluation of regression equation. Is this clear to everyone? Yeah, is it clear? Okay, now the next thing that we need to discuss here is about disadvantages of multiple linear regression analysis technique. So these equations that you are going to develop, or that you have already developed, has certain disadvantages. Okay, like the equation derived is purely empirical. it is not going to consider the actual situation that is happening at the site. So whenever an area is to be analyzed, okay, you are going to analyze the area based on certain assumptions that you have made. Okay, so empirical means that it is not having any theoretical background behind it. The existing situation is being analyzed. It might be because of any reason. So those reasons might be seen today, and it's not necessary that the same reason will be seen 20 years later. So it is entirely empirical. That's the reason the equation that we are trying to derive here, or that you have already derived, is purely empirical. It doesn't give you the true reasons of the study to be carried out. Secondly, these equations, they fail to establish a meaningful relationship between the dependent and independent variables. So it's like, if a person has fallen, you are not trying to validate the reason for which the person has fallen. Okay, or in case if the population has got reduced, you are not trying to accommodate the reason in these equations that you are trying to develop about why the population has fallen. You are just saying that it has come down, the population has come down. Why it has come down, we are not trying to develop the meaningful relationship between them. Okay, that's the second disadvantage. Thirdly, the validity of the prediction in the future is uncertain. Okay, so it means that in case if there's an area in the city which is underdeveloped, in future also, using this equation or these equations that you have developed, in future also you are going to say that that area is going to be underdeveloped, which is uncertain. Okay, you don't know what is going to happen after 10 years. So the area which you think that is having zero development might have a huge amount of development seen after 10 years. But your equation will predict that since today it is underdeveloped, in future also it is going to be underdeveloped. So you cannot be certain about the equation. And then the last disadvantage what you have here is indicates that it is difficult to evaluate the effect of statistical problems relating to non-linearity of the response surface. Okay, what it means is these statistical problems might have lot of non-linearity into it. Okay, and it is basically seen in case of the variables that we are trying to consider them to be as independent variables. Okay, so they are also called as explanatory variables in statistical analysis. So these are some of the disadvantages what we have in multiple linear regression analysis techniques. Okay, so any doubts you have till now? Any of these things can be asked in your examination or in your test. Any doubts? Do you guys have any doubt? Anyways, I think I'll stop here, and this is where we end today's class.